We're not that big. But yet we have thread after thread about us. We literally have so many threads about us. So this tells us...
there's tens of thousands of people that are a part of this group, and so we have way more fans than we even knew.
We really do.
All right, and we are back for another Gabs with Abigail. If you aren't back and this is your first time on my channel, hi, welcome to Gabs with Abigail, where we talk about the Bates and the Duggars and other D-list fundies. As you can probably see from the thumbnail, we are talking about a D-list fundie, Miss Solie, in fact. While offering criticism of what I think are Solie's terrible takes, I also want to point out the positive things about Solie that attract me to her content and remind me that she's not a one-dimensional internet caricature. Truly, I'd like to look at the subtle seduction of a burgeoning social media star, 15.1k followers and growing.
Disclaimer, this video is not critiquing Solie's choice to practice biblical womanhood, be a homemaker, and a stay-at-home mother. I think if that's what she wants to do, if that's what she says is the best way she can serve God, if she gets to every day be building the life that she dreams of, I think that is so wonderful. So again, for the people in the back, this video is not critiquing Solie's lifestyle.
That being said, let's get into her villain story. All right, so congrats, first of all, right? I mean, that you're getting a solo video before anybody else in terms of this big home movement that we're doing, because you are nobody until you are talked about, honey. And your extremism, the things that you have been posting, the things that you have been saying, honey, it's giving what it was supposed to give. Love it. Love to see it. So let's get into it. Little Miss Solie Oxenfree was born June 5th, 1999 in Florida. We could end the video right there because it explains it all, right? I mean, y'all know I don't have to say it. Y'all know how I feel about the state of Florida, okay? Period. My good sis is a Gen Zer. Like, that's insane to me. Like, you're from Gen Z. Sit down somewhere. Like, I cannot. And why I say that is just that I think that's what makes her so annoying and obnoxious to a lot of people, is that here is this child, basically, right? In the sense of, like, you're very young in life, okay? She's obviously not a child, but she's very, very, very young. And I think it's funny that when you're at that age, you can't reflect on how young you are until you're older. And that's just me speaking from, personal experience. And it's almost what makes it me so, I don't want to say frustrated, but sad that she's choosing to be so dogmatic with her religion. Solie, to me, is a really interesting character in that I feel like she presents on her family's page, like in their Instagram and their social media, and herself in two very different ways. I don't think though it's like the case where we think, oh, well, everybody acts a little bit different for their family. No, I really do genuinely feel like that is her, that both are her, right? But what she presents through her family makes her more personable, makes her more likable, makes her seem like a real, actual, decent human being versus this kind of monster, okay? Kind of, instead of like looking like, if that was the only experience that I had through her, was through her family or else through their content that they put on the internet, I would think that this was probably a wonderful girl with some conservative beliefs, right? It's actually free to mind your own business, but since Solie couldn't, I won't either. I highly doubt these posts are about women who just don't want children because they just don't want children. But also taking into consideration how people typically react to those women, it may. However, some women may choose not to have children due to being carriers for illnesses such as hemophilia, Alport syndrome, and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, to name a few. Maybe they had a hysterectomy due to polycystic ovarian syndrome. Some women in professions such as social work and teaching might choose not to become mothers because their lives are dedicated to nurturing children in this manner. What about a widow who doesn't want to get remarried and never had the chance to have a child before they become a widow? Referencing 1 Timothy 5, verse 10, what constitutes a young widow. As for the plant dog mom post, this might be what helps someone deal with infertility or singleness. The limit to Solie's compassion for people is what makes this a trash TradWife take. Say that 3 times fast.
Let's see, something good.
Solie is really a natural beauty, and I do think that's definitely a big part of her allure, right? It's easy, it's pleasurable to look at people who are beautiful, and I think she is just so naturally pretty, doesn't really need to put on makeup, has really nice skin. Her mother has these great lips and smile, and shout out to Pride Month. I think this is my little gay thing. I love when a woman has a beautiful mouth, and I think she has such a great smile. She has the cute dimples. She's very, very beautiful. I think she should wear her hair in pigtails more. Works for her. When she has the bun up, it's just super classy, but also low-key and easy. I can definitely see why Andre is attracted to his wife. One, being judged for your color and not your character does not mean that you won't be successful in life. So the second sentence is a bit weird, but I understand that if you're drinking the conservative Kool-Aid, that you might equate complaining about racism as a stagnant victimhood mentality. 2, I guess the Christian community is not a group. 3, this is just an absolute lie and incredibly ignorant. As someone who has spent the last 5 years working in financial aid and who gets calls from students begging for extra scholarships every day, I do not have some, OMG, you're black? Here is a $10,000 free card. Your brown-skinned boy does not have any special opportunities that they will be given for being brown. Your wife got extra money for being black at her college? If so, please let me know the school because I have some people who should apply. Scholarship opportunities in general outside of colleges themselves are extremely competitive, and the fact remains that this is not something special black and brown people. This is not something special to brown and black people in regards to having scholarship opportunities through their ethnic communities / racial backgrounds. There are Slavic, there are Polish, there are German, there are Asian, to name a few. This would be like saying kids who attend church their whole life and get a scholarship through their church have an unfair opportunity over people whose parents are not Christians. You would never say that. Black and brown people do not get loans more easily than anyone else. Like, in what life? How would that even be possible? Please do a quick Google of redlining, the Fair Housing Act, and the stories of black people who have had their housing reviews undervalued until they were done again without them being there, and white family photos in the house. 4, white people are not out to get your son. People who complain about racism do not think white people are Klansmen, beloved. If the white American Christian dick was any further down your throat, I would gag. But I also understand, no, that's it, I would gag. 5, you are a victim of ignorance, Andre, because you could literally read books and scholarly articles to understand racism in America without it ruining your religious worldview. But you have decided the easier thing, the more comfortable thing, is to pull this post out your ass.
And then some of them are like, he's white, and some people are like, he's from Nicaragua, and anyway, it's just so funny.
Now, baby, there is not one person who looks at a picture of you and said, he's white. Okay? All right. He's from Nicaragua. Yeah, I mean, that's believable. Okay, I'm sorry if you're going to be offended by that, but you look like who Donald Trump is building that wall to keep out. Like, he looks white. Baby, no. There's nobody saying. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I'm just not going to tolerate you saying that people think that you're white from photos. All right? Okay. Alrighty. Assumptions.
You hate black people. No. You hate women. No. And then I'm like, okay, what else do you want?
Something good.
Solie is actually a very beautiful singer. I do think that's where her true passion lies, besides what she's got going on that's created the need for this video. I do think that's something that she really, really loves, really, really enjoys. And it makes sense. To me, it's a moment to worship and get put in the spirit. And it's really a different, almost like out of body. You really can leave everything and just kind of pour out to God. You praise, anything that you're worried about. It's great. It's probably my favorite part of church. And she's really talented. And I do really think that in the next couple of years, that's what she's going to be leveraging her influence with what she's got going right now is to help progress her music career, and not out of greed. I'm not saying what she's doing right now is fraudulent in that sense, but just that she's really passionate about music. Solie had a post about tips for submitting to your husband that were simple, and I actually agree that they were very simple and very helpful if you are choosing to be in that type of relationship. I am slowly but surely collecting all of these tips to put out videos for city girls, because the city girl to submissive TradWife pipeline, I promise you that line is so thin.
The page is called Fundies Snark. So then they get to snark on Fundies. And this one is uncensored, so it's especially juicy. So rule number 1 is kind to each other.
Be kind. The only kind hate comments.
Yes, that's a very interesting rule. Be kind to each other. I just thought that was really hilarious because it's the first rule is about kindness, and you'll hear how kind they are. Yeah, maybe these people they follow. But anyways, this is Solie being extra toxic and sexist today. So I'm gonna click on full.
It's the today for me. She's sexist and toxic every day, but she's extra sexist and toxic today.
Image, and the full image is what's her name?
Bevel Beatty, if any of you know who she is. And
she was talking about how it's okay to feel shame if you sleep around, so her post is I am pro slut-shaming and bottling down.
We should do an episode on that, by the way.
Yeah, we should. And so Solie reposted that video that this lady did, and Solie was like, she said it,
She said it. I didn't say it. She said it.
So the slut-shaming comment. Imagine in the same breath, right? Just having said, oh, there's nothing kind about this page, right? Understanding, right? Recognizing that you felt like that was contradictory and laughable to you, right? And then mere moments later, co-signing the fact that you think that slut-shaming is okay because you don't think that being a slut is okay. Listen to this. You edited this. You played this back and didn't find anything contradictory about what you were saying. Interesting.
Comments are, big surprise, the Fundies love slut-shaming. It's basically their part-time hobby. So this whole thing about shaming we talk about sometimes. Shame isn't bad. The word shame or feeling shame isn't bad because the shame lets you know that there's something going on, there's something wrong. Yeah. No one can make you feel shame. Just like now, they're trying to make us feel shame about our views, about the content that we post out there. And do we feel ashamed? Absolutely not. No. We're doubling down. You know why? Because we know that this is the truth. Like Jesus said, this is the way, the truth, and the life. And so once you find Jesus, you realize, listen, it's not good to be a slut. I know that that's controversial to say nowadays because no one wants to say it. Everyone is just like, no, we're not going to say it. So we're like, okay, no one else is going to say it. We're going to say it.
Out here looking like a hoe.
Right.
Yeah, he a hoe, ain't he?
Yeah, slut.
And then people...
We should feel shame when we do wrong things, but we don't have to stay as believers. We don't have to stay in that shame because of Christ and what he in his
Yes.
sacrifice on the cross.
Yeah,
So,
because that shame lets us know that we're wrong. When we're wrong, we repent, and then God brings us back.
and
But
that's
if you
why
don't feel
we're
that,
pro
listen,
slut shaming, quote unquote. Because
Listen.
we need people to know this is wrong.
The word slut is such an arbitrary word that for me, to hear you say like, oh, we live in a society that encourages you to be a slut, I have to say it because nobody else will. No. Anybody can get called a slut for any reason, right?
And what made you a slut?
Because I own my body. My body is not a political playground. It's not a place for legislation.
So you sleep around with a lot of men.
No, actually, I'm a virgin.
You're a virgin?
Yeah.
So you're not a slut.
Yes, you can be a slut.
You are still a virgin, but yet you call yourself a
It
slut.
wouldn't matter. I'm saying it doesn't matter if I'm a virgin. It doesn't matter what a woman's sexual history is. A slut is just a word that you and your fellow penises made. A slut. Your mama's a slut. Your grandma's a slut. Everybody.
Is your mother a slut? Well, let me ask. I noticed are you dressed slutty today?
No. I'm dressed like a woman.
What made you decide to come out looking like this? You look like a slut.
Like, words have power when they're wielded by certain people. So the reality is that any man can go and call a woman a slut because he thinks what you're doing is sluttish, right? Who gets to set those limits? You, Solie, who's had one boyfriend, one kiss, one love, one heartbreak, feel like you can come on and speak to us about sexual shame. If you can use, like, I get to call you a slut because on the other side, if I don't tell you that you're a slut, you're never going to be not a slut. Well, listen, I can tell you that you're a bitch and you're a cunt. And it's okay for me to tell you that. It's okay for me to use that language because on the other side of this is you're going to be a better person. And once you aren't a bitch anymore, once you aren't just a cunt in the worst way, you're going to be like, I can stop saying those things about you. And that's okay. It's in the Bible that, you know, you're kind of being a nasty person. So I'm allowed to say those things about you because on the other side of you being just the absolute biggest bitch and your husband being an absolute ass is all of this goodness that comes from being saved, redeemed by Jesus Christ. Like, you would understand that that's inappropriate. I want to hope that, right? But it is what it is. Honestly, this was a labor of love having to listen to this as much as I did. All right.
Good news, everyone.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
she's been getting worse and worse these days. I feel like she's really trying to compensate for some unhappiness in her own.
So let's talk about that. I absolutely do not think that Solie is unhappy in her marriage. Absolutely, 100,000%. That is not the case. And I think the reason why people want to believe that it's easy to say she's unhappy in her marriage, like, because she's being more critical. I don't even say critical, because some of her takes are so inflammatory, is because it's nice. As humans, we don't want to believe that somebody who is mean could be a happy person. Like, you have to be miserable inside. Like, we're taught all the time in school, right, that our bullies, they bully us because they are unhappy people. There's something wrong with their life. You know, oh, if he hits you, if a boy hits you, he likes you, right? This is the narrative that we're taught our whole life. And the reality is, no. Some people are nasty, disgusting people because they're nasty, disgusting people. It has nothing to do with them being unhappy in their lives, right? Do you think that 50 Cent is super unhappy in his life? Like, he might be. But he's a mean, nasty person, right? Like, I don't know, 50, please don't sue me. I know you'd be suing. I swear to God, everybody owes 50 Cent some kind of money. I don't want to be one of them. I'm not trying to get added to the list. But you get what I'm saying, which I 1,000% believe that she is in the happiest time in her life. She is living her best, happiest life. She got to marry her first love, right? Her first person she ever had a kiss with. And now she has a baby. A baby feels like such a beautiful extension of how much you love somebody. It's something that you guys made together. You're building this family. Right, her family. She's only been married a year, and her family unit is so new, and I'm sure like how exciting that must be right now to say like this is so new and it's going to just keep growing and keep blossoming. Right, getting to worship beside her husband, getting to raise her child for God. This is not somebody who's unhappy, and I want us to let go of this false narrative that any of these women, these TradWife women, are unhappy. right? That they're being forced into this. These are women with a lot of agency, a ton of agency. This is why, for me, I don't hold any preconceived notions about any of these people's husbands. I feel like some of the things that I learned about Andre is because of like them doing this video or this podcast.
Another person says, I spent way too much time going through all her content, but looking through her old stories and posts with her friends and family, she did seem extremely happy.
Back in the day.
Not fake Instagram happy, but as genuine happy as it could seem, despite not actually knowing her and only going off her Instagram. Oh, Lord. Her stories and lives now are so mean and judgy, and she comes off really unhappy. I would feel more bad if she wasn't so arrogant.
I think the exact opposite. I feel like she used to be so unhappy, so confused, so lost. And when it clicked for her, right, that you can find all of your purpose in life just in Jesus, just in what God is in the Bible, right? You don't need to aspire to anything else beyond this to feel satisfied. Like, and what I mean by that, like, I feel in many ways what the anti-feminist movement is fighting, but is blaming feminism, is that there is so much pressure in our society to feel like you have a purpose, to feel like you are super special. You know, you have the ability to become a doctor. You have the ability to become an engineer. Like, that constant pressure to go to college, get the job, get the nice house, make a lot of money, go, hustle and grind culture. And I think for men, like for her, that just wasn't for her. And she was really, really unhappy having to have that in her life, having that pressure. And they see that feminism is the reason why they have had to deal with that uncomfortable pressure. So I 100,000% understand that perspective. I do, because I can relate, where I feel kind of frustrated sometimes with life in terms of all the things that I feel. This idea of having to chase money versus happiness.
It's part of exactly the reason why I have my page, is to tell people that that's not true, that you're not worthless or you have to do more if you're just a wife and a mother. That is insane.
But I agree that I don't think that this idea of it, it's not enough, that you should be doing more. Getting to spend all that time and pour into your children, if you're that kind of person, is super fulfilling. I don't believe in this whole like hustle culture of like needing to have multiple streams of income, needing to have passive income, because that shit sounds stressful. You should be able to go to your job, do your job, and it takes care of your bills at the house. You can feed everybody. You can pay for your car. You can go on a nice vacation once a year. It should be enough to do all of that and not feel all of this pressure to be like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be the next billionaire. I'm going to retire all of my kids. They're going to have trust funds. Like, you shouldn't need to have that to be happy. And we're very much in a society that feels that way. There's so much pressure, right? Everybody has a fucking boutique. Everybody's got an eyelash, is entrepreneurial now. Everybody's trying to get into stocks, right? And I don't disagree with Solie in terms of like how frustrating it is for people to be saying like, oh, that's it. But it's becoming a reoccurring thing in our society, though. And it's not, that isn't feminism. Unfortunately, that's our society. International Women's Day is not just some casual American holiday where boss babes tell each other good job. International Women's Day is a day for every woman in the world, hence the word international. It's for the Malala Yousafzais, girls who experience violence for wanting to go to school. It's for the women and girls who endure female genital mutilation to prevent them from becoming sluts. It's for women who have had to work because they had capitalism forced on their country, and now there's no chance for a livelihood outside of the dominant economic free market system, so women who might have once stayed home and lived off of subsistence farming are forced to work. It's for women who work jobs that are considered low skill because it's something that's considered women's work. It's for girls who miss school because they don't have access to menstrual products. And it is, of course, for girls who are breaking glass ceilings at any level. We're all women. We go through things that echo each other but don't necessarily mirror one another. But this allows us to celebrate our collective wins and triumphs and try to help each other with our losses. And March 8th celebrates what that means to ourselves exclusively and then amongst each other. I'm sorry you solely don't understand it, but also just couldn't mind your business since you don't celebrate the day. You don't celebrate my birthday, but wouldn't need to write a post about why you don't celebrate Abigail's birthday. It's ironic to me the one day a year where women agree with TradWives that women have unique stories and roles separate from men and that should be celebrated, that all of a sudden now this is a godless day. You solely said that you don't believe in reproduction rights, that it's a made-up thing. When my mother married my father, she stopped getting her period. Her OBGYN put her on birth control to prevent early menopause and give her back her cycle. Because of this, my mother was able to get pregnant with me, and she calls me a miracle baby because, for the aforementioned reason, she didn't think she could get pregnant. Having easy, affordable access to birth control was her reproductive right, and it was my right to life. Or is it only pro-life when abortion is involved? Reproduction rights are the doctors not being able to force one-child-only laws that allow high-risk women to keep having children even if it's against medical advice. Reproductive rights are getting to choose a VBAC. In vitro, I could go on. Just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean it's some weird, contrived thing. You might be just ignorant on the topic since it doesn't fit neatly into your worldview, at which case I would just be quiet.
Okay, let's see, something good.
Cop, homegirl is doubling down because she's realizing that she's oppressed.
Wrong.
She is not oppressed. This is the most free girl you could possibly think of. This is a privileged woman, all right? She is in no way oppressed. Stop saying it. 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 This is TradWife, conservative women's favorite narrative. That we are saying that they are oppressed. I need everybody right now who commits to snark to commit to saying we will never say that these women are oppressed ever again, okay? Because they are not. They are not. These are some of the most privileged women in the country. Stop making assumptions about people's husbands, right? I think it's easier, just like I said, it's easy to believe that mean people are unhappy. It's easier to believe that these women are being forced into it by the men in their lives, when there is just so much evidence in history that women are key to upholding any systems, okay? Like, they are key to upholding it. So when we're talking about misogyny, when we're talking about patriarchy, women are there holding up the pillars, okay? Okay. We need to stop saying it to deny them of that ability to say that there is this world that's saying that they're oppressed by choosing to stay home. They choose it. Because if they wanted to get up and walk out of this tomorrow, they could. If they wanted to get a divorce tomorrow, they could. If they said, I don't want to ever do this ever again in my life, they could. These women are in no way oppressed. They absolutely 1,000% have a choice. If they wanted to work tomorrow, they could. If they wanted to stop submitting to their husband and be able to get away with it and have a legal system, have a network of people who would be there to help them and protect them and to get out of them, they absolutely would. If she didn't, wasn't able to find a job, she has a family to fall back on. She has a safety net. This is not a woman who is oppressed, okay? But these are not people who are oppressed, period. Solie said, let's bring it back to 1788. I miss Massa. I don't know where to start. I had initially caught wind of Miss Solie Oxenfree through Mrs. Midwest. You know, cool, she's a TradWife, biblical womanhood. Already know the script she's going to go by, cool, whatever, kind of NBD. But then I noticed, wait, is this bitch saying women shouldn't be able to vote? And this line of thinking isn't new within the biblical womanhood movement, but it's the first time I've seen it from this new generation. A major cornerstone of Solie's anti-feminism is the notion that even the earliest women's rights activists were bad for society. The suffragists equal bad. These suffragettes were upper and middle class women who were also spearheading or else participating in some of the most important progressive social movements of the time. And to minimize their desire to do good works as the Bible calls us to do, to a mere desire to be just like men is really shitting on the Christian church's commitment to helping improving the lives of society's most vulnerable people. At the time when these movements were started, America was in its most financially prosperous but economically unequal, sound familiar, time, and Christians felt compelled to tackle how this was impacting people's day-to-day lives. It's extremely redundant for Solie to be placing blame on these first women without ever critiquing the men of the time. To suggest women were discontent with their God-ordained roles rather than acknowledging that so many of the social causes they were championing were things already considered to be within the God-ordained women's sphere. It's choosing a very uneducated perspective. I mean, Solie obviously can read, but for some reason is resisting doing the heavy lifting involved regarding actually learning this stuff. This post in particular offers nothing of substance to reveal the depravity of the earliest suffragettes. Susan B. Anthony was a preacher's daughter, an abolitionist, and when black men got the right to vote before women, a virulent racist. Why not talk about that, since you want to criticize early feminists and what they're willing to do, and what they were willing to do to get the vote? PBS has a great documentary on Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton that explains the different factions within the movement. So you can stop thinking it's an angry monolith of secular women. You could start your criticism research there. Fast forward 100 years of white women getting to participate in voting, it's a very weird take to be idealizing living in 1786. I know TradWife stands are probably rolling their eyes right now like, OMG, that's not what she's saying. I don't want to return to that time. Okay, but it's weird to be pretending that every good thing about why you'd want to live in 2021 versus being a Guatemalan biracial couple in 1786 is not because of a lot of the things Solie complains about. Power concedes nothing. If people, both men and women, had not been rebellious, poor whites would never have gotten the vote, and we would still be on plantations. Harriet Tubman was a rebellious woman. I wonder if Solie thinks black urban communities would have less violence had we not rejected our master's authorities and just stayed in the plantation. But anyway, again, power concedes nothing. So this belief that eventually white land-owning men would just start naturally sharing the power to make decisions in America is weird. While not excluded from the Homestead Act of the 1860s, racism still meant black people couldn't access these grants on par with their white counterparts. Imagine your land-owning husband has his property burned down in a race riot. Now what? What would widows do? Who represents them? What about women who get out of abusive relationship? Who votes for them in their best interest? Men who can't find a partner until late in their life don't deserve to vote? Like, this is just such a strange thing to fantasize about. Solie's mother is from rural Mississippi. The Voting Rights Act is only about 10 to 15 years older than Solie's mom, and definitely the same age as some of Solie's mom's 18 siblings. So to be this flippant with people's hard-fought voting rights is extremely disappointing, and just her overall perspective on feminism is a terrible take. It's called being a nice person. You know what I mean? That's literally it. It's just really kind of being a nice person. And it's something that I would say she has in common with the Rodriguezes, right? With Jill. This idea that Christians don't need to be sweet. They don't need to be nice because we're called to be the salt in life, right? Well, honey, things can be too salty, right? And it's not pleasurable, and it gives you high blood pressure, which eventually leads to heart attacks, which eventually kills you, okay? Some of y'all are getting, like, it's not actually well seasoned. And I just can't, I really hope, but they've already said it, that they're doubling down on this stuff. And that's, again, what makes me sad about her being young and being that way, because it's like, you have so much growing you can do, having to be that you're giving up your convictions, right? You can absolutely believe that it's not good to be sexually promiscuous, that you should save yourself for your husband, to promote and encourage people to save themselves for their husband. You can comment on a world that makes you feel like it shames people for wanting that and for wanting to spread that without making other people who don't choose that feel bad. This idea of shame and brokenness doesn't need to come from the two of y'all. It doesn't need to come from you and your friends, you and your cronies. And I can't understand why you don't understand that, why you don't see that. Because the comments on Fundy Snark Uncensored would never make you all of a sudden become a liberal, because they're mean. Beyond and judgmental, like beyond, they don't take time to understand your beliefs or what it is that you love, who you are as a family person, because you're this beautiful girl who obviously has a beautiful, strong spirit, okay? A couple of views that I disagree with, that I think could use some work, and that's okay, because she's young and she's growing. And I hope, though, she gives herself the grace to grow, where she admits where she was still growing, because it's going to make her a better mentor for the kind of women that she's trying to speak to right now. And in turn, like, be able to encourage other women into her lifestyle, because I know that that's a big part of why she does this, is that she wants to encourage other women who want to come into this lifestyle, who are already in it. And I just wish it didn't rely on talking down on other women to do that. And again, we're going to give her the grace to get there.
It's like, you niggas gotta stop acting weird. You niggas gotta stop acting